Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. Tonight, there are things happening in our country and around the globe that you need to know about. But I'm going to bet that you haven't heard a single one mentioned in the mainstream media. For instance, did you know that 87 senators and over 300 House members have signed this letter to the President of the United States, standing up for Israel, the blockade of Gaza, and the actions of the Israeli commandos who landed on their ships on the ships in an attempt to break the blockade just a few weeks ago? I find this astounding. 87 senators out of 100. Why haven't you heard about this? How about this one? Did you know that the House yesterday inserted a last-minute tweak into their version of the financial reform bill that could force private banking institutions, your bank, to pay for and clean up the mess that is Fannie and Freddie? Oh, by the way, that's just another way of saying that you're going to pay for it. You know, you'll pay for the cleanup and the mess yourself. Your bank won't. Your bank will pass all those costs gladly right to you. What about the provision to help small businesses bill? I love this one. It passed the House just last week. This would allow all but the top 100 largest banks to pretend that they haven't made any of those bad subprime loans. So that way they can go out and lend more money. Excuse me? This bill would allow almost 8,000 banks to spread out accounting of those bad debts for 6 to 10 years. Just pretend that, no, we've got more assets than it really looks like. Really, we do. No, you don't. By the way, this is exactly what happened during the 1980s in the savings and loan collapse, and again with the Japanese bank collapse, which they still haven't pulled out of from the 1990s. History tells us this doesn't work. Why are we doing it, and why don't you know about it? It's amazing what happens when you pretend a boo-boo really isn't there. What happens usually is it festers, it becomes infected, and then it kills you. Why are we doing this? Why aren't we having these conversations? Meantime, the president's buddy George Soros said yesterday that Germany's plan to actually address its debt instead of continuing to spend like a drunken sailor and pretend that nothing's wrong was, and I quote, pushing its neighbors into deflation, threatening a long phase of stagnation. Wait, it gets better. And lead to nationalism, social unrest, and xenophobia, and endangering democracy. Oh, thank you, George. Here's my fear, America, and I hope I'm wrong. But my fear is that we're about to be introduced to a new phase of this economic crisis that will be presented as an emergency requiring our immediate attention in one form or another, a massive and maybe fatal government bailout that will lead to the ruination of our country. You have to do your own homework. You have to figure these things out for yourself, because no one in the media is really helping. I have much more on these stories, and you can get it all at glennbeck.com. But the risks are so big. Why is the media not telling you these stories? You know what they're doing this weekend? They're busy prepping network specials on the anniversary of Michael Jackson's death. This Friday, ABC, NBC, and CNN will all have special coverage commemorating the one-year anniversary of Michael Jackson's passing. 4 hours of network specialized coverage on Michael Jackson. You know what we'll be doing tomorrow night? Relearning our history of our black founders, trying to restore real history. It explains so much, including why we are repeating the same mistakes of the past. We don't know any better. We don't know. We can tell you how many albums Michael Jackson sold. We can tell you the name of his monkey. But we can't tell you about our own history. I am sorry, but we are not going to give you the story of Michael Jackson. But we will tonight give you the history of America on this chart here. We're going to start in 1848 with Karl Marx. And we're going to end down here with Sean Penn. I'll tell you exactly how we got here. Learn from history or repeat the same mistakes. Let's go. Well, hello, America. I want to talk to you tonight about communism. And I have to tell you, I know how many people in America feel when somebody gets on TV and says, I got to talk to you about the communist. 3 years ago, I would have made fun of people like me. I would have mocked me. I would have. Don't fall into that trap, please, tonight. Open your mind, open your ears. The country is in trouble. I don't want to believe many of the things that I believe. I think you're the same. But there are communists, believe it or not, communists. It's amazing. I thought we beat it. The best thing to ever happen to the communists was the Red Scare and Joseph McCarthy. We had beat communism. We soundly discredited it. Okay, that's what I thought when the wall came down. Joseph McCarthy, he was a joke, right? In every sense, people viewed communists in his day as traitors who wanted to destroy America. They crept into the unions, especially the teacher unions, that coupled with the colleges. Now you have a situation where communists were starting to be the ones writing and teaching our history. Now what happens? After communism fell, it was erased. We have children growing up now that don't even know what communism is. They didn't have to do what we did as kids. They didn't have to go through the emergency attack drills at school where we were like, "Why? Okay, a nuclear bomb's going to go off and what? I'm going to get under my desk for what?" They didn't have to go through duck and cover. They didn't growing up, they didn't hear about gulags. They never had to worry about the Russians. They haven't seen the horror shows of millions of mass murders and starving people at the hands of brutal communist dictators. So now it's just cool to be a communist. What difference does it make? T-shirts of Che are one of the most popular T-shirts around. Che was a racist and a mass murderer, yet we have schools banning kids from wearing American flag T-shirts on Cinco de Mayo, but Che T-shirts, cool. If we're going to ban a T-shirt, and I wouldn't ban any T-shirts. I just teach kids what's cool and what's not. I'd ban the one with the killer communist on it. It's not offensive because nobody knows the history of what these people did. How else can you explain everything that's going on today with little or no outrage? Things like a statue of Stalin going up in Virginia. See that? It's in Virginia. How does this idea not cross somebody's desk and that person say, wait, you want to put a what? Where? It happens because no one knows anymore or cares about communists. The people who do know about communists, they're cool. Cameron Diaz illustrated this mindset when she visited Peru to do a TV project on Peru and its culture. While touring the country, she carried a purse emblazoned with a red star and the words, right here in Chinese, "Serve the people." It kind of caused a little bit of an outrage because it was Mao's slogan. It was a Maoist insurgency in the 1980s and 90s that killed 70,000 people in Peru. But that's a fashion bag. That's not to mention the millions, the tens of millions of people that Mao killed in China. It's not so cool when you know history, is it, Cameron? But they don't. Nobody's teaching it, and people are busy erasing it. You've got communist teachers in California calling for revolution. That's what this guy's doing. He's a teacher. In Houston, there's a branch of CPUSA. Do you even know what that is? You recognize the symbol if you're my age, Communist Party USA. They are a group calling for the nationalization of BP. Nationalization of BP, communists. Reaching out to young people through Facebook. Ah, look at that. And their favorite movie is Capitalism, a love story. Hey, that's Michael Moore. Cindy Sheehan in New Orleans talked about challenging capitalism. Listen to what she's calling for.
Any meaningful discussion of this disaster must challenge the system and structure of capitalism. If we had socialism where the companies were nationalized and the democratic control of the workers, the cleanup would have been, well, maybe they would have had an acoustic device on the blowout preventer. Maybe they would have spent the extra $500,000 to prevent this disaster and we wouldn't have to be here.
Yeah. Or, Cindy, maybe like every other nationalist or socialist or communist country in the world, in the history of mankind, they'd already be bankrupt and people would be living in gulags. One of the two, but I'm going to go with your happy scenario. What do you say we go with history? It's obvious we aren't paying attention to history anymore because the Communist Party had their annual convention broadcast on C-SPAN. Think about that. Half a century ago, we were rooting out communists as traitors to our Constitution and our country. Now, we're putting them on C-SPAN, and nobody says a word. How did we get here, and how do we get out? Well, we have to start listening to warnings. We've been warned before, but we didn't listen. Former Secretary of Agriculture in the 1960s, Ezra Taft Benson, warned about what was coming in a 1966 speech. He talked about a meeting that he had with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev.